Well, hello. Now, so let's remind ourselves what we're up to. We're up to Leah as an example of somebody who wants, it would seem, her Mazal changed. Remember, we said that the whole world, says Rashi, quoting from Midrashim, said that she is the Zivug, she's going to marry him, so she's the Zivug of Esav, and yet she fights against this. Then we talked about how, don't think, this is very important, we'll see if we get this all in, I very much. I'm going to get too sworn for you tonight. So with a bit of luck, we'll get this all in. That everybody was saying that she was the Zivug, and we're going to see exactly how, if that was her Mazal, how she manages to change that Mazal. Okay, so let's start by telling us something Rabbi Desta says on the subject. This Rabbi Desta is Nechilik Beish. I can't remember, did we actually get to the stage where we talked about the tefillas of her being able to change something?
I think we said we were going to do that.
Does that ring a bell? I can't remember. We got to that. The Alshich, which I didn't prepare, of course, because I thought we'd done it. Terrible. I tell you what, you know what? It's going to take too much time, and I've got so much to say, so let's just do this anyway. This is Rabbi Dessler, and it's in Kelik Base, and it's page 158. And here it's in the Pasha of Noach, if I remember rightly. Yes, it's about Noach. And right at the end, it says, Hatzadik Memola Chelkai. The role of a tzaddik is to be malala, is to fulfill his role. Okay, so what does that mean? Let me just give you a little bit of this. There's a good place to jump in here. Okay, the role that you've got in the world is a unique role to you, and this makes sense that every single Jew is unique and has a unique role to fulfill in being here and making a Kiddush Hashem in the world. Fine. And I've already explained, he said previously, that you're given the kelim that you need in order to fulfill that role. That is to say that you're given, as he's going to say, a wife, you're given a field, that will be, parnosa. Also, it means Yerusha, right? Because everybody is a hemshach to some degree of the father. And again, each child takes a different bit of the role of the father. So the Yerusha that you get is a little bit of him, as it were, the keli that he used in his life to fulfill that role, which in a sense you've now stepped into his shoes. Does that make sense? It's where you nod. If you've switched off your microphones, you're going to have to nod. I want to see some serious nodding going on here. Abby, that's a good nod. Chaim, yeah, you got to put the camera down. I'm almost seeing nothing of you. And Moshe gives a thumbs up. You see, there's always somebody who will not nod. If I said that, you would have nodded. Okay, Moshe, you do that. Now we'll start nodding. Okay, so everybody therefore has got that a particular unique role to play and is given unique kelim in order to fulfill that role. Okay, now the kelim is going to ring a bell, and when you think of Rebbe, when he's on his deathbed and what he says to Hashem is Barach. Well, let's just put that out there, but Rabbi Des doesn't quote that, but let's go on. He says, and that's for one of those taklisim is, of course, a wife, or occasionally wives, as in Yaakov Avinu, in order to fulfill that role, and that's decreed from the beginning. Bas Pliny the Pliny. So an angel calls out and says, the Bas Pliny the Pliny, base Pliny the Pliny, good have a house, Soda Pliny the Pliny. This is all the Gemara incited that base. All of that. All of those are what's going to help you to fulfill that purpose. Can I miss this bit out? Let's see. Ma brurim hadvorim shebechina achas lachroza shal beis pleni besod lepleni kulam b'siyam lebayis Hashem. Yaskira pias devoya etek al tzediko shal oilam b'shalas eich shabal chazal b'sadi isha. I should have missed that bit out. We're not even going to go into that. V'zeh inin hamazel, and that all of that is given to you. That is your mazel. That constitutes your mazel. So the mazel that you're given is, and we'll see that I'll expand on this in just a second, that all of that is the mazel that's set for you when you set foot in the world. I'll come back to that shortly. And now he says the following thing. Behine. Tzadik hu mi she'in aloikeach la'atzmoi afila nekuda achas mehenosan loy. All of the kelim that you are given in order to fulfill your tachlis in this world, then a tzaddik never takes anything of those for his own benefit, his own pleasure. Rather, he realizes that everything I've been given is therefore a tool to work for Hashem, and therefore, Rebbe said, the richest man in the world, in competition on the rich skills with Caesar himself, on his deathbed, he put all his fingers up to Hashem and said, I never took anything for myself. Everything you gave me, I used for the purpose you gave it to me for, and that was for you. Okay. So he used it all and gave it all back to Hashem. That was the purpose. That, says Rabbi Dessler, is the definition of a tzaddik. And halavai that we could get to such a level. But there's such a thing as a chosid, right? The level of chosid. And think of Mesilas Yesharim when we're thinking of these words, not, of course, payas and shrines and stuff like that, although I'm not saying that chosid couldn't reach such levels. A bechina base, but there's a different way of looking at this, or rather a different aspect to this, and he says, Ha'odam yochel l'shanas es hamazon. It's possible for a person to change his mazon, right? So you've got a tachlis when you're here, and you're given all the tools necessary to fulfill that tachlis. However, you can change your mazon. And here he says, bechinas mishana mokum mishana mazon. That's the idea of changing the mokum, changing the mazon. Now, Rabbi Dessler, I think it's on page 126 in Chelik Dalet, but again, I should have prepared this before. There, Rabbi Dessler says, the mitzvah of Don Lechaskus is so important. I did make a note, see? That's why. Chelik Hey, page 87, not Dalet 126. Okay, well, I knew about it sometime, once upon a time. Anyway, Bekitzer, he talks about the mitzvah of Don Lechaskus and how it's one of the mitzvahs that if you fail in it, in Rosh Hashanah, even if you feel you've done a good job when it comes to Rosh Hashanah, ultimately you haven't, and you might not know, and you've got a really lousy year, and you don't understand why. I thought I'd daven nicely, and all the stuff I should have done. But you weren't Mekayim the mitzvah of Don Lechaskus. And there, he says, Al Todinus Kabercho, as we all know this famous man Chazal, don't judge somebody at Shdegia Lema Koimoy until you reach his place, right? So Shina Mokum, Shina Mazal, which we actually take literally. In fact, I used to teach a little boy in Gateshead in a school in the yeshiva, one of the yeshiva katanas I used to teach in there, or being Gateshead in my time, the yeshiva katana that I used to teach in there, called the Gateshead Jewish boarding school. A little boy who his family came from the Bamberger, so I suppose these days that's somehow distantly related to me, or certainly my grandchildren. And he had fallen from a balcony in Zurich or Lucerne, somewhere in Switzerland. And Baruch Hashem, he fell on top of a car, which saved his life but caused brain damage. They asked the Shaila, Mato, move, and so they moved to Gateshead. So we literally take this seriously, of course, as Shina Mokum, Shina Mazal. And there is a Mazal in a certain place, which isn't another place. But Rabbi Dessler says, when he talks about it over there in Chelik Hey, page 187, page 87, there Rabbi Dessler says, that the Mokum, where it says, don't judge somebody to reach his place. What is a person's place? And there Rabbi Dessler says the same thing. He says, the Mokum is everything you were given to fulfill your tachlis in this world. Were you born clever, or were you born average like me, or were you born below average? Were you born healthy, or was your health more delicate? Were you born into a loving family, or a fractured family? What's the argument? How did you get on with your siblings? You know, was your older sister thrilled to the new baby brother in the family? Or was she jealous? And when she took you for rides outside in the stroller, kept accidentally dropping you on your head on the concrete, and so on and so forth. All of that which you come across in your life, that's your mokum. That's what goes to make you. So Shina mokum, Shina mazal, in that sense, means you can change everything about yourself. Okay, so what does that mean? Hein l'toiv, hein l'muta. So you can change your mazal either positively or negatively. So, Yochel Odom L'Shanas Makaima Beruchnias, a person can change his mokoin, that is to say his tachlis in Ruchnias, as Rabbi Dessler, and as a consequence, obviously you will need new kelim. If I want to broaden what I give, what I do, I've got higher ambitions than the one you gave to me at the beginning, and if I fulfill them, I'm a tzaddik. But I want to go beyond the level of tzaddik. I want to reach the level of chosid, is to go lifnim, beyond what you've set, the boundaries you set on me, and do more. So he says a person is able to broaden and change your mazal, and get more than your chelik. You can get yours and somebody else's. that rings a bell with Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu got the scar of 10 generations who had blown their scar, and he, as it says in Pirkei Avos, gets it all, picks it all up. It's going, right? Now, bottom paragraph. V'ata advarim brurim. And now it comes out very clearly. Called tzaddikim bebechinas hashlemas kelkom. So as we said, tzaddikim, the definition of tzaddik is somebody who fulfills his purpose, the way he should have. Mazolam behechrach sheyeshva. She'im yichseb mashu harigazim v'roshim. A tzaddik, if he does it, if he takes any of what Hashem gave him just for himself, then he becomes a gazlan. He's not a tzaddik at all. He took it for himself. You've only given it to use for Hashem. V'loi tzaddik, and therefore you're no longer a tzaddik. Ve'im hishlim, but if you fulfill that purpose, hari hu tzaddik, then you're a tzaddik. Ki hari hashim kol chelka, because you fulfilled what you're supposed to do. Kol ka tzaddik mimola chelka miyuchad loy. Again, tzaddik is somebody who fulfills what you're supposed to do. Ana miyishtom oid madregas lamala mechelka mazalai. But there are madregas that are beyond that which was set out for you at the beginning of your journey. So you can change your mazel. That, he says, is why it says, had Noach lived in a generation of Avram Avinu, he would not have been called a tzaddik. That whole dispute, the famous Rashi there, which I think is the Gemara in Sanhedrin, but bearing in mind the way my mind's working tonight, it's probably more Exodus. But anyway, you get the idea. And therefore, he says, it means, because Avram was also tzaddik, but Avram went beyond the level of tzaddik. So if you got this general idea, it seems to be possible for a person to want to do more, become a chosid beyond, that is like a super tzaddik, if you like. Go beyond the normal limits. Fine. Now, we're considering why it was that Leah was crying Rise out. If it is the case that it's beshert and fated to marry Esau. More than that, as we said last week, and this is going to be very important for where we go to next, don't think that Esau was, this a goose-stepping Nazi type figure. Not at all. We said, remember, Reb Simcha Zissel brought the medrash that Rishayim Gam came mefakshin mitzvahs, and the puzzling phrase is Hashem was unclear, as it were, Kabyochel in his mind, which was better, the mitzvahs of tzaddikim and the mitzvahs of Rishayim. Okay, so we find somebody who is nearly there, who is going off the target just a little bit, and hakol holachacha isha, and everything goes after a woman. If you've got a great wife, then you will be able to be sorted out. Remember, we pointed out that Yaakov Avinu was punished for keeping Dinah away from Esav because Efshar was the lashon of Rashi that she could have put him back on the correct path. Well, if that was true about Dinah, Kabel Chaimer Leah, bearing in mind she was his zivug, and why is she so resistant to that? So we see that clearly from what Rabbi Dessler said here, that a person can want a different path, can want a better path, a broader, a bigger path. And that's Rabbi Dessler's take on this. Fine. I can't resist, the way I wrote this in the share last week, I wanted to leave this to the end of the share, but I'm just going to read it to you now. Again, we're sticking with Rabbi Dessler in the Chiluk base, and now we leap forward to page 218. So previously we were 158, and now we're on page 218. And just to give you a taste of this, but what I'm about to read to you from the Shem Shmuel is so fabulously magnificent that I think I'll just leave him with the final word in this one. So here's a little essay called Rochel and Leah. And he says, Shekol Asel Shel Yaakov lo Oved Ela B'Shvil Rochel. As the Pasuk says, the whole zain is the Yiddish word. The whole being of Yaakov was for Rochel, marrying Rochel. He knew that she was the perfection of his soul. Kol Atzel Shel Yaakov. Yesh Bechinas Yaakov v'yesh Bechinas Yisrael. So he says there is such a thing of Yaakov, and that's a madrega. And then there's a madrega above Yaakov. So now bearing in mind what we said before about Avram Avinu, we could label this Yaakov is the tzaddik, and Yisrael is the chosid. That's even beyond Yaakov. I'm going to switch off my phone because it buzzed. And that means it's still on, which means somebody could phone in the middle. Right, so he says, in shtei dargas shoynes b'mailas haromas b'avodas Hashem yisborach. The name Yaakov defines, now remember, I don't know if you had a chance to look yet in Rabbi Dessler in his essay on Pesach, But he points out, as we all know, that the names that were given, talked about this in our share many times, the name that you give your children, or we were given, that's Mina Shamayim. It's not accidental, because you are your name. And there the Gemara, he quotes Rabbi Meir, Medai B'Shema, I think it's called Tzia, that if you had a problem, Rabbi Meir was able to see from your name what the issue was, because you are your name. Your toichin is in your name. However, he says, if that's true about individuals like me or you, Kal v'chomer, when the Torah names something, then that is the person's name. Paroi comes from the word parua, uncovered. Think of a police state with microphones and cameras everywhere. Only they had spiritual microphones and cameras. Remember, there's a Yalkut Shimoni, I think it is, that said that the entrance to the cities, they were carved into each of the entrances on either side, the stone head of a snake. And anybody who tried to leave the city, who didn't have rishus to leave the city or enter it, the stone snake started to scream. An alarm system, and along would come the police or the soldiers and get you. How did they do that? Ruach HaTumah. But basically, it was surveillance, and there was no therefore individuality allowed in Mitzrayim. Parua. Mitzrayim comes from the word Meitzer, mina Meitzer Karasiyo, a place of incredible oppression and pressure on somebody. So the names that the Torah gives somebody, Kal v'chomer, is the nature of the person. He says that the nature of Yaakov and the nature of Yisrael is contained in their names, and these are Gedorim, spiritual levels. So he says, two different worlds altogether. Yaakov is in this world. Yisrael is a much higher madriga. And then he goes on to say that that's exactly, therefore, why when Yaakov sees Rachel, that he immediately says, marry me, because he sees that she's the other half of the soul, which she was, as Yaakov. However, he could not at that stage realize he's going to become something different, broaden his role, broaden his Canaan, become Yisrael, and that Leah would be appropriate to him at that level. But that bespeaks or asks the question. I thought she was appropriate to Esau. I thought that she was the perfect match, the other half of his soul. In fact, the Arizal says, just like Adam and Rishon was both male and female, and then Hashem, as it were, artificially separated him, and the whole of life went on from there, then when a soul comes to the world, as it were, it's parachuting down, it's both one entity, it's male and female. And when it comes here, it splits into two and lands in two different bodies, and they can be millions of miles apart, and Hashem will, if you go about it right, Hashem will bring them back together again. Right, okay. If so, if she is the other half, she comes off the Esau, then how can it possibly be that she's appropriate to Yaakov? Even if he's called Yisrael. So then I've got to read you the Shem Mishmol. Now this Shem Mishmol, I have to tell you, the Shem Mishmol is so uber fabulous at the best of times, but this had me jumping up and down when I saw it the first time, and it probably had me, and when I prepared it again for tonight, had me jumping up and down, and this is so important. This is going to be one of my biggies, fundamental describer of everything that I know. Anyway, so basically, if you're interested, it's in Parshas V'Yetzei, and it's in page Shin Nun Hey. If you've got a Shem Mishmol at home, and if you don't, why not? Okay, right. So there's a lot here. So and because time is not going to be too kind to us, I'm going to do a bit of jumping and hopping about. So, but there's so much to say. He sets up questions. I'm going to miss out the questions. Try and get from the context of the answers, you get what the questions were. And let's see. He quotes his Adonai Rebbe. His teacher is and says, "Yaakov ve'Esav hoya kamo eitz hachaim ve'eitz hadas toiv v'ra." Yaakov and Esav were like the two trees that were in Gan Eden, the eitz hachaim and the eitz hadas toiv v'ra. Okay, and then he says, jumping a bit behind it, "D'shnei alonis nivra she'odam yiska al yodam l'shlemusav." Do not make the mistake. Now, this works out very nicely, bearing in mind that we just finished learning. Our previous limud was all about Adam and Gan Eden. Everything that was in Gan Eden that was there in order to allow him to perfect himself. The two trees, there was a tree of life and there's a tree of the Eitz Das Toivara. That wasn't there in order to trip him up. That was quite the contrary. It was there in order to allow him not to eat from it and grow as a consequence from the 49th level to the 50th level, and the whole of the universe would have been perfected at that point. So he says, "Hainu d'shnei elonis nivra sha'odam yiska al yodam l'shemusay ben inyan sur me'rava asatov." And this idea, these two trees, is a hint, is a metaphor, almost a reflection of the concept of sur mera ve'asatov. Sur mera ve'asatov. Now, jumping down a little bit. V'hakavona, sha'odam yiz'ametz al koyach hamishkosay shal eitz hadas v'yivra memena. Of course, there is a different path available to a person, and that would be if you eat from the eitz hadas, which of course Adam Rishon does. But the reason and its purpose of being there is to not eat from it. Therefore, it's sur mera ve'asatov. Therefore, by rejecting it, running away from it, then you would automatically asatov. Let me read this bit to you. Relative to how much a person runs away from bad, the person can achieve good. Does that make sense? You hit a ball very hard on the wall, and it bounces off. So the more you run the opposite way, the higher that's the way. The more you put into it, then you're going to be repelled in the opposite direction. Does that make sense, roughly? Are you with me? Let's see some nodding. Thank you. Oh, never get cut. Another thumbs upper. Okay, fine. Okay, then give me a thumbs up. Okay. So he says, the father, the more a person runs away from evil, automatically you go boomerang in the opposite direction. And that was the different approaches to the same tachlis of Yaakov and Esav. What does that mean? But Aldas came nivro, and for that purpose they were created. Now we're getting into deep stuff, but this is so fabulous. Halt kop, as they say. Hang in there with me. Yaakov yizkel shemusay alidei asatoiv. Two things: surmira be'asatoiv. Right? Yaakov was a natural asitoiv guy, and he just did the right thing all the time. Esav's approach was to be a surmira guy and to get to that same thing. There are two ways to do this. This is all fabulous, but let's see if we can get a bit further. So Yaakov, he did it by being the Ishtam who sat in the yeshiva all day long and just learned, and he was not out there in the world. He didn't have to reject anything. He kept away from anything. He built himself a holy ghetto. But Esav, as we said, now remember last week I quoted again the Rabbi Dessler, also in Chilik Beis, when he said it was not fated for Esav to be a Rosha. Do you remember that? Do we quote that? Yeah. It was not fated for him to. Oh, he has, as Rabbi Dessler says. Incidentally, Rabbi Dessler and the Shem Shmuel here are just literally bouncing. It's almost like a tennis match between each other. Normally, I find, by the way, that the Shem Shmuel and Rabbi Yerucham do that. The Litvisher approach and the Hasidic approach, both echoing or both mirroring each other. But anyway, it says the Esav Nivra in Tachana Haroes. So this is what Rabbi Dessler said. Esav was not built to be bad. Oh, we know that he had an attraction to these things. That's when he was in his mother's womb, when she passed the place of Avodah Zarah, he was sort of like jumping, he was attracted like holding a magnet over a needle and it starts to jump and vibrate. That just as Rabbi Dessler shows you, that he had that temptation, but his job was to reject it. And when you reject it, you go in the opposite direction, both to reach the same tachlis. Thumbs up? Yes? Chaim, I'm not saying a thumb. Oh, you're nodding. Thank you very much, man. Okay. Indeed, he was created with an inclination to everything evil. But the purpose, the point, the das toivera aspect of Kavana she is ametz bekoyach al tivoi, that he should have grabbed hold of the nature that he possessed. That was his mazel, and rejected, which he could have done. The yivrach minara, and run away, surmira. And from that, he would have come, listen to the language here, to a madrega gedola ma'oid.
which it doesn't say about Yaakov. But we're saying Madrega Gedolim implies a Madrega bigger than Yaakov. Let's see. And had he fulfilled the contract, it says it in black and white. Oh, it says Efsher, but we'll turn a couple of pages and the Efsher drops away. And had Esau fulfilled his tachlis, that approach, he would have been much higher than Yaakov. Or said maybe, he says. I'll be married tzaddik as my, again, he quotes this Adonai Marav Rebbe, and he says, Sheyesh Madregas Gavoyas, that this is boom. You can see why people were nervous of Chassidus, or certainly nervous of Kabbalah. Take a sentence, extract it, it's a genuine Maimer Chazal, a genuine Zohar or something, and say, look, this is real Torah, this is real Judaism, and how dangerous, what an atom bomb this can be. Listen. So he says that his famous Rebbe, I'm not sure. What was his Rebbe? Who's he quoting here? Is it the Kotzk? I'm not sure. Sheyesh, anybody know? When Hashem Mishmol says Adonai Marav Rebbe, who is he talking about? A Litvite giving a shir to Litvite. What do we know? Okay. Sheyesh Madregas Gavoyas Ma'oid. Listen to this. There are Madregas which are very, very high. Kosha Lasigan, impossible, very, very hard to reach, rather. Alidei Hasiris Mitzvahs Umaisim Tovim, through Mitzvahs and Maisim Tovim. Aval Nokol Lasigim Alidei Habricha Mina Hefach. But it is easy to reach them by running away from them, from going in the opposite direction. That means by being exposed to evil and rejecting it. In that, you can reach a higher level than somebody who was never exposed to evil in the first place, I suppose, because you were never tempted. And everybody knows if you put a spring under tremendous pressure and let go, boing, it goes to the opposite extreme. Think of the famous Gemara about somebody called Elisha ben Avuah. No, it's not Elisha ben Avuah. Elazar ben Dodai. Elazar ben Dodai, Rabbi Chaim Friedlander goes into this in great length in his essay on Rosh Hashanah. There Elazar ben Dodai, there was no Zoina in the world that he hadn't gone to. And remember the famous story, he goes to this incredibly expensive Zoina, and he's just about to, as it were, how should I put this, seal the deal, if that's would be the appropriate phrase. Then the wind blows outside, but in actual fact it says neficha, which means she loses control of her. It's flatulence. And she says, just like Elazar ben Dodai, this flatulence will never go back to the place it came from. Elazar ben Dodai will never accept you if you do tshuva. And then, of course, he runs away. He runs away. This is a slap in the face. And he cries and he cries and he cries. There's a whole bit of Haggadah there. And then he dies. And the Bas calls him Rebbe Elazar ben Dodai. And remember what Rebbe's reaction to this is? He cries. Oh, I've worked my whole life. And he gets it in a minute. Because what Rosh Hashanah is saying here is that approach of confrontation from evil and running away from it can leap you higher than anybody could ever be. Now, I'm not suggesting, and I certainly don't think he is either, that that's a lechatchila. Absolutely not a lechatchila. I said to you before, when I once, this idea came into my mind. It wasn't an idea, it was an idea for a share, to explain to people, when I was a rabbi, I told these university students, and a lot of them had drug problems, I should get myself addicted to heroin, then come off it to show them that, you can go off it. Maybe you can't go off it. That was Adam Arishan's mistake. However, if you do reject it, it can certainly propel you higher. Now, quickly. 34, I'd really like to get this done. Good. But Yitzchak HaYechoshev she'Esav Memola es kol tevos. But Yitzchak believed that Esav had done, that was his job, that was his tachlis, and that Yitzchak had imbued in him that approach, and he was able to reject it, and therefore was an incredibly high level, which is why he wanted to give him the brachas. Now, missing out a bit. The Rivka Hergisha, but Rivka Hergisha is margish, understands, feels that the fact that he's not, in actual fact, going to be higher. And incidentally, that higher idea is what we said in Reb Simcha Zissel. Remember? Rishoim Gamkein Mevakshin Mitzvahs. Remember that medrash we quoted a few minutes ago? But what sort of mitzvahs? He said the highest mitzvahs. Indeed. Because he can be in a higher madriga. Actually, he was built, he was constructed, as we just said, to be in a higher madriga. It's in his DNA, if he gets it right. But suppose he gets it wrong. So Rivka knows he's got it wrong. He's actually embraced Ra. Now we're coming back to Leah, but we'll see in a second. That's if you get to that madriga by running away. But rather, instead of running away from it, he embraced it and covers it up. Rivka hargishes it. Now, Rivka understands this. How does she understand this? Ruach HaKodesh. That was what she says to Yaakov, Shema bekoili, you listen to my voice. This is Nevi'us, this is Ruach HaKodesh. She understands, something that Yitzhak doesn't understand. Now, why Yitzhak doesn't understand this, why Hashem didn't let him see, that's a whole different shit. So she understands that as he's failed in that approach, and that we need both trees for the garden to be complete, who's going to fulfill that role? He's not doing it, he's just pretending to do it. So Rivka knows that therefore that approach now has to be the approach of Yaakov as well. But within that approach is a possibility of being in a higher madriga. Yisrael is a higher madriga than Yaakov. And then he says something which is absolutely astonishingly brilliant. I'm just blown away by the brilliance of the Shem Mishmuel. And I say, if you don't have this sefer, just get hold of this page. Just keep reading it for the rest of your life. You'll be very happy. I am. So he says, where are we up to? Okay. Ad as hoya Yaakov Yoshe b'shalom. Well, listen to this bit. So she knows that now that path has to be walked by Yaakov as well. Okay. Ad as hoya Yaakov Yoshe b'shalom. What was Yaakov's life like before this incident? He sat in tent and he learned all day. Torah. Fantastic, no problem. He never left Brisk, he never left Ponovich, he never left Gateshead. Well, this is fabulous. He was never confronted with a challenge that he had to run away from. But from that moment in time, when the bracha of Esav goes to him, what's his life? One running away from another. Surmira ve'asatoiv. So clever. Therefore, and not only that, he's got Etzai Perik Chadash. Now he's got a new chapter opening up in his life. Now he's got a real challenge after challenge after challenge after challenge. And remember when we talked about that, or one of our others sharing recently, don't forget that you're only really going to grow if it's a challenge which is tough. Okay, so now he's going to grow in a different direction. And now he's going to become Yisrael. But to become Yisrael is being part of this world, rejecting this world, confronting this world, and going in the opposite direction. You can go higher as a consequence. Well, I'm going to read more to you, but just now we can focus on Leah. Leah is the zivug. Now, Rabbi Desta said that Rachel is the zivug for Yaakov. She's the perfect match for a tzaddik who sits in Beis HaMedrash all the time. She's the perfect wife. But Leah is a tzedekis in a time of confrontation and conflict. And that's, therefore, she's running away from bad. She's running away from Esav. She's crying. She doesn't want to be married to him. Oh, it's your beshert, but she knows, just like his mother knows, that he's embraced evil, and she runs away from. That's exactly her tachlis. That's what his tachlis was as well, which he's not now embracing anymore. But Yaakov is. His mother's planned out a new role for him. So she indeed is the zivug of Esav, but Esav's not embracing that role. Now Yaakov is, and now she wants to be his wife, because now she's appropriate for him in his new role. And now she's the perfect match for Yaakov, because Yaakov is now taking the role of Esav. In fact, she was the zivug of Yaakov and Esav, dependent on their bechira. So a person has got a zivug, but there's such a thing as bechira. And of course, as the Sforim say, you can make a mess of the perfect wife that was set up for you in the Shemaim and go in the opposite direction. and not all fits perfectly into place. And while Leah was crying, she wants more. She wants her mazel, not in his mazel, which has been distorted. She wants to be. So really, she's not asking for anything other than she was designed to be. The wife of somebody who would be a sur me'ra be'asaton. And that
Does it take away from the fact that Rachel is the zivug of Yaakov?
Say that again?
Does it take away from the fact, if Yaakov is changing because now he's taking on the role of Esav also, does that take away from the zivugness of Rachel to Leah?
No, because again, it's madrega acha madrega. He couldn't possibly. You start off, as I said, this is dangerous stuff in a sense. It's a bit like a bomb that, if you tell people this stuff without a proper achana, that could be easily distorted, because this is exactly how Adam Rishon would go wrong. You can see that you're supposed to, as it were, get near evil and run away from it. That's my heroin addiction story, or a moshel I was trying to give. You've got to build one step at a time before you get to the next step. There's no way you can chap madrigas. You cannot be a Yisrael straight away. You have to first be a Yaakov. Right? So it doesn't take away from Rachel's role. Rachel is still the Iker wife because Yaakov is built from Rachel. She comes first. She helps him to be mashlim the Yaakov. But in order to reach, as we saw, as the Kotzka said, to get to a level beyond the Yaakov, that's the Yisrael, that has to be in confronting evil, which his whole life is now filled with. Okay. And that same balance is Rachel and Leah. This idea of being a tzaddik who sits and learns, that's the Yaakov. And then the Leah, as we said. So let's see. In the Zohar Kodesh, it says, Rachel he, dugmas alma de isgalia. She is the world, this idea of Rachel, she is the of the world which is revealed. The Leah dugma alma de achsaya, a hidden world where you don't see it. Which means, but we said that it's easier to reach the highest levels from doing the sur me'ra business of, as it were, being involved with evil and then running away from it. This is the same idea of Yaakov. Esav, I think I can more or less stop there. Okay, we'll stop there. There's so much more in that Shem Shmuel, but it will take us off target. Okay, let's go back to what we're talking about. Therefore, with 3 minutes left before people have to go to other sharing, can a person change their mazel? Yes, a person can. Shina moka, shina mazel, but more than that. The shina mokum means the whole tachlis of your life. At the very highest madrigas, a person can say, like Avram Avinu, I want more. But you'd have to be in an incredibly, it's a bit like Chaim's previous question, you'd have to have already fulfilled your Yaakov before you could consider being Yisrael. And I'm afraid I'm very, very far away from fulfilling my Yehud Yoda before they give me a new title, whatever that would be, George. Something, whatever name they want to bestow on me. Certainly you have to build from what you are. Really, I'd be quite happy to be a tzaddik, which I'm not, and mimali my tafkid. But the question is, can a person change their mazel? Yes. But it's a very, very big step. And for most of us, we should really concentrate on what our tachlis and tafkid is and try and fix and perfect that. And I shall not see you. Next week's Pesach, isn't it? Well, in that case, we won't be having the share. Although I did hear that some Sephardi Rabbonim paskened. Did you hear this one?
I did hear, but I heard that it was taken out of context.
Good. Well, good. I'm glad it's been back into context. I'm not sure the context could be. However, so even if there is some sort of heter flying out there, I'm afraid I'm not able to deploy it. So we're not able to learn together next week by Zoom. But hopefully after Pesach, when the Chesed Hashem is things should be better for Klal Yisrael. We'll be able to get together again. Okay. Have a kosher Pesach. Stay gesund, be gesund, no only brochas in your family.
Amen. Amen. Shkayach.
Thank you.